So Anna, we met when we were working in marketing in a production company, and then you
Yeah,
left and you started your own business selling like paintings and commissions and beautiful prints.
I
And
did.
then you got a tattoo apprenticeship in January, and
Yeah.
now you're back in the studio after quarantine and lockdown and everything. So you have had a very busy year. How has it been?
Yeah, I think it's strange you say that actually, because that kind of sort of pinpointing all that, it kind of feels a bit weird. Because I'm just taking each day as it comes and I'm like, right, okay, on to the next thing, what's happening now? And then when you sort of say, right, you got your apprenticeship, started your own business, left an office job, I'm like, oh yeah, like I did do that. Like it
You
feels
did do all
really,
that.
yeah, it's really strange. I left the office job that we worked at in theatre marketing last year and became self-employed. So I was still freelancing with that company, running social media, and to be honest, not really knowing what I was doing. And yeah, I was kind of running my art business on the side, um, in the hope to build a portfolio and become a tattoo apprentice. So I actually moved from London to Brighton uh, once I'd left the office job, and have since moved from Brighton to London again. So had an accidental gap year.
A
But
very productive gap year.
yeah, I think looking back on it, it has been really productive. But at the time, it definitely didn't feel like that. It felt really, really chaotic. And I think, like, from listening to about 1,000 podcasts, I think like a lot of people who are self-employed, there is, when you kind of don't have that set structure of going to a 9 to 5 every day, you kind of realize that you either set those boundaries for yourself or they don't happen. And you kind of find yourself at 3 a.m., you know, messaging people saying like, yeah, I can do that commission for you, this is the price, what kind of size do you want it? And it can be a bit much. And I think there's so much to learn when you become self-employed. That is, I think, mostly through trial and error. I think there is no kind of rule book, just because everyone who's self-employed, you know, there's no set job spec or structure put in place for you. So there's so much figuring out that you have to do just on your own device. And yeah, it's been really interesting. Yeah, it's
You're basically building the entire like office structure and office
yeah.
culture all by yourself. How long did you plan for before you actually decided, okay, now I'm leaving and now I'm starting it? Was it like a long term thing where you had a plan, you had a timeline, and you thought, okay, on that year I'll leave and I'll start doing this and I'm building my portfolio? Or did you kind of go, I'm going to be a tattoo artist and I'm gonna just start doing it now and just figuring out as I go?
I think like for me, what I can remember is I went on holiday to Zante, to Zakynthos, and it was kind of the first time I'd had a break from starting that office job. And I think it just gave me the perspective I needed to kind of step back and think, like, I think I was kind of feeling really overwhelmed with, because the office job was quite full on. Like at the time, I was the only person in the department, and it was, apart from yourself, actually, you just joined when I went on holiday, and like
I
it was
remember.
yeah, and like it was, I kind of took a step back and I was like thinking about what I really wanted to do, and I was kind of like, I don't really want to live my life looking forward to a holiday once a year. And I was kind of like, this for me isn't how I want to live my life at all. I want to wake up every day and be like, yeah, I'm looking forward to going to work today. I kind of don't need a holiday. Maybe it'd be nice to take, but I'm not desperately counting down the days. And I think at this point I'd already had probably like 3 tattoos or something, which in the office job again I kept hiding. I remember I bought these sandals that like had like frills on them that would hide my tattoo on my foot, and I'd be really self-conscious about my tattoos in that job. And actually that's kind of the opposite of you what I wanted to feel. I wanted to feel that I could be myself where I work. Every job I worked, I felt like it wasn't creative enough, and I felt like when I was giving creative input, it wasn't really being listened to, and I felt like that's just not where I wanted to be at. And like in my spare time, I was drawing my weekends, drawing my evenings, and I think on that holiday, I just thought to myself, like, actually, what are the steps to be a tattoo artist? So I moved down to Brighton after leaving the office job last year, and I was creating my portfolio. So that kind of was hours and hours and hours and months of drawing to kind of better my skill and putting my best work in there to show prospective tattoo shops. And alongside that, I was, yes, started making prints from that, and also taking on a few commissions here and there. And to be honest, I didn't really know what I was doing when I started. I was kind of like, I was just winging it. Like someone said, like, oh, can you do like a portrait of my dog? And I was like, I guess so. Like you kind of, I think when you start, you're so unsure, and you're so, I think it's just that lack of experience, lack of confidence that makes you really, I think, doubt yourself as well. You kind of, and you sell it for like the cheapest price because you don't think you're worth much more than that, and you're kind of like, oh, I'll do it for 20 quid or whatever. But I think as the time goes on, you learn to, I think you become more confident in what you do. You kind of become more experienced in dealing with clients and with people, and actually what's worth your time and what's not, as more commissions come in. But yeah, it takes time. It's a long process. I kind of started researching from there and found out that you can do a course in London that costs, you know, 10 grand for 2 weeks, but it's not respected in the industry. It's not the graft that they expect you to go through. It's kind of a blessing that it's an industry you can't pay your way into. So I found out that, you know, you have to go through an apprenticeship, which lasts between 1 and 2 years usually, kind of depending on how quickly you grasp everything and how quickly you learn, and it's kind of between that time span. And yeah, you just work really hard, and you start by, you know, in your apprenticeship, you mop the floors, clean the toilets, as well as observing and actually getting to tattoo. You kind of, there's a lot of hard graft involved. And I work at HAMMERSMITH Tattoo, and to be fair, like, I've heard horror stories about a lot of apprenticeships. I'm fortunate that mine isn't a horror story. It's a lot of hard work, and it's kind of long hours because you tattoo outside of the shop opening hours. So that might mean staying at the studio till late or going in on your days off, which I probably don't do enough of. But I'm lucky that the guys there are kind of, you know, like, you obviously have to earn their respect, and, you know, that's not given to you from day one, because why should it be? But they're really willing to learn, to teach me, and give me their knowledge and help me through. So I feel really lucky that I've got their support.
Through that patience and that perseverance, you also really value your work more than if you just sort of went, oh yeah, I've just managed to do this magically. And that's what you were saying about also, you know, understanding how much your work is worth, and all of that. That's so difficult, especially as a freelancer. You don't necessarily have a sort of like thing of everyone else is saying, oh yes, I price my, you know, my work this way or that way. You kind of go in and think, oh well, I don't know if I can do that. And it's such a huge and a long process to understand how to value things and how to price things.
I have such amazing friends, I'm really lucky too, that actually said to me, you know, Anna, you're pricing too low, you need to think more of yourself, you need to, you know, whether that support network comes from your family, friends, your partner. I think it's really important to have those people around you that build you up and actually give you advice, and yeah, just even if it's not business advice, just kind of confidence and keep pushing you to grow. And I think that's what I really love about FREEBIRD as well, because it's like, it is another one of ththose networks that, you know, people that maybe don't have a crazy amount of supportive friends or family, or that, you know, it is somewhere people can go for that confidence and for that guidance and support.
Yeah, definitely. That's very much the hope, is that, you know, there's so much that people know and that is said through, you know, when you go to have a drink with someone, and there's so much value in that knowledge, but it's not necessarily something that's shared publicly or online, or just in a sort of official format. There's no, you know, handbook or that kind of thing. So having that kind of support from friends and family is brilliant. But if you don't have that, if you're like the first in your family to start freelancing, then
Yeah,
it's so difficult to kind of know how to get into it. So hopefully this is like a community and something that can help build that on a larger scale.
my parents don't understand tattooing at all. They don't understand it. They don't like it. They are kind of, I would say they've actively discouraged me from going into tattooing, which I understand, but also it makes life quite difficult because, you know, this is all I want to do. And when you're already taking a big risk and putting yourself out there, you kind of don't need those people bringing you down and doubting yourself, because you, trust me, you already have those doubts, and you're kind of, I think it can be tricky if you're going into something that people don't support. And yeah, I think it's so important to surround yourself with the right people and regularly catch up with those people, maybe people who are already in that industry or doing what you want to do. I think it's great to just keep in contact with those people as much as you can, just to get the reassurance and that support. Like it's just invaluable, like to just keep going, just ignore people that are doubting you, and just know that if it's what you want to do and that is what will make you happy, just ignore everyone else.
How are you finding the work that you're doing? Do you have like a different outlook on the work now that it's you know, creative, and that as tattooing in part, and also drawing and doing all of those creative things? How have you been approaching the differences between, you know, the new kind of job that you're doing?
It's kind of strange. Like, I think lockdown gave me a bit of perspective as well. I think it made me really appreciate what I do. And I think yeah, going from an office job with no I'm going to say no creativity at all involved. Like, creativity was lacking, and I think everyone had the ideas there, but there were certain members of the company that shut you down immediately. Were kind of just, it was very, very difficult to work with a lot of people there. And although most people were really brilliant, and I still chat to a lot of people from there, it kind of suppressed, I think, a lot of people's skills and talents. And I think now I feel I have a lot of creative freedom, and I think that is kind of invaluable. I think having kind of almost no boundaries apart from my working hours and things like that, I think is just amazing. Like, you just have freedom to be who you want to be, dress how you want to dress. There's not this level of kind of, yeah, you've got to wear a business dress, and oh, you can't wear this colour to work because the boss doesn't like it. And it just seems crazy now looking back. You're kind of like, I think when you're in that, you do kind of conform, and you're like, oh god, okay, like, yeah, this is my world now. But it's so small, and it's on one person's terms. Whereas, you know, I think going freelance and or self-employed and working a job you love, you don't feel those constraints, and you can be more creative, and you can explore certain aspects of yourself, I guess, that, you know, like, you can be like, oh, actually, I've got that outfit in the back of my cupboard that I didn't really feel confident enough to wear, or like, I definitely couldn't wear to work before because it was like covered in tattoo art, or, you know, like, it's really nice to be able to, yeah, like, I guess, discover more about your creativity and not have those boundaries. And yeah, it's really great. Nowadays it's kind of, I think we're really lucky that I think there is more of this kind of fluid working, where people can work part-time and that's normalized, and they do their own thing on the side. And I think there's a lot more of that happening. It's not just like you work in the same job for 20 years and then maybe change career path. Like I think, like, I've worked in pubs, I've worked in advertising, marketing, and I'm a tattoo apprentice, and I'm 24. So it's like, you're kind of like, I don't think nowadays it's that unusual to do that and to try 10 different careers before you find what works for you. Yeah.
Or you don't, and you just keep going until
Yeah.
forever, just switching every couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going from a very traditional kind of office job to your tattoo apprenticeship and like entrepreneur side of things, is there anything that you kind of like didn't expect, like huge surprises? Or
absolutely, the security. I think there's, looking back, I think at the time you definitely think differently, and there were days where I woke up and I honestly was like, I cannot be bothered to go to work today. I don't want to go to work today. I'm not really loving it. Like, and I found that like I loved the people at that job, and I think what I miss is kind of being able to get away with things. I used to do my work that I needed to do, 100%. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't like avoiding work. I just did it super quick, and I was like, I just want to go and have a chat now. I was like, I think because the motivation wasn't there for me, it wasn't like what I love to do, and I used to sort of go around different offices, sort of just be knocking on the door, finding an excuse to come in, like, with my cup of tea and have a chat. And I think that was quite fun because no one really noticed. Like, I think you can get away with a bit more, and whereas when it's your personal motivation, being self-employed, like, or you're a tattoo apprentice and you know you're dealing with a lot of customers and stuff, you can't just sort of sneak off and be like, oh, I'll just leave the front desk for a couple of hours. You know, there's kind of like, I think you're more exposed, I guess, and you'd only be letting yourself down if you kind of were skiving or something. There's no motivation for that basically at the moment. It's like, oh god, I'm either losing money or I could be learning something that would help me. So I think, yeah, back then it's kind of, especially on a Friday, you know, it's a bit more relaxed and everything. So, and I miss that structure of, yeah, I knew my days off, I knew I could plan things in ahead, and it's kind of, I guess that is taken away from you a lot when you're self-employed, but yeah, it depends, because I love it now. Like, I wouldn't change it for anything.
I have been loving your Instagram. You always have like really nice like phrases or views, and just kind of reminding people to breathe and reminding people of like just to take perspective on life. And I feel like it's a really healthy use of social media. Would you say that you have a good relationship with it, or like either on the business side or on your personal?
I think I used to have quite an unhealthy relationship with social media, and I think I used to follow people that maybe I wasn't really connected with anymore. I think especially once you leave high school and you can see, you know, there's those people in high school that you didn't not get on with, but you don't really know anymore. And, you know, like maybe you were in there, sat next to them in your business class at school, but like you have no connection with that person. Like, unless you want to and you think, oh, you know, I'll get back in touch with them. I think they're the kind of people that I follow on my business. I kind of want to connect. I think business is all about connections and who you know just as much as what you know. And, you know, if these people ask for tattoos, obviously, like, I'd want to catch up with them. And I think that's really nice that, you know, they would want that. And it's not that I don't want to know them anymore and I'm kind of chucking out my life, but like, I think on my personal one, I'm now following only people that I'm connected with in real life. And I think that's really, really important. I think there's kind of this politeness to social media now where you feel like you've got to follow that person because, you know, you don't know what they think if they're, you know, you unfollowed them. And I just think the bottom line is no one cares. I think like social media isn't real life, and I think people are mistaking it for real life. I had a really weird incident happen in March where basically all my people that I was following disappeared, and I was like, what's going on? And it said following one. That's all it said, following one on my profile. And I was like, this must be like a mistake or something. And I clicked on it and it was Donald Trump. So I don't know what happened. Maybe I was hacked by the American government for some reason. And it just said following one and it was Trump. And that was it. And I was like, okay, so I changed my password on Instagram because I was like, something dodgy's happened here. But the great thing was, I had to go back and follow everyone again. But I was thinking stuff. I was like, this is a great opportunity to be really selective about who I follow. Obviously, I unfollowed Trump. Don't worry, he's gone. But like, I went back and just followed the people that I'm connected to in real life, or that maybe were quite positive and things like that. And I think actually, I was thinking, it was from then where I thought to myself, I'm not going to post for validation anymore. I'm not going to post to get likes. I'm not going to post, oh, I'm out with my friends, look at me. Because at the end of the day, it is all for validation, and it's all for, I think, like, yeah, people want that confirmation, like, great, you're having a good time. Like, yeah, this is how you're supposed to be living your life. And, you know, you get 5 reacts from it. It's that kind of like, and your brain is like responding really well to that and things. And I actually think, I thought to myself, I was like, right, if people are sitting scrolling through these 100 Instagram stories, what do I want them to see from me? How can I interrupt that kind of mindless scrolling or mindless clicking through? Is actually to post little messages of support and messages of encouragement.
My internet went down recently for like 4 days, and I just kind of kept having that thing of just reaching for my phone and opening Twitter, opening like Instagram. And I said, no, I don't have. And then it was this weird thing of like half relief and then half like, but I need to know. And then I was like, what do I need to know? And I started doing a thing where like, when I'm scrolling through anything, at the end of it, I kind of get, okay, what do I remember of it? Like what has stuck into my brain? Honestly, most of the time it's not a lot. But sometimes if there's something positive, I'm like, okay, so that's good. So that's like a thing that I need to remember, like this account or this kind of message I really like. And then if I'm just scrolling through and I realize that I'm like learning nothing, I'll go through and like unfollow or mute or that kind of stuff. Just to kind of limit the amount of information that gets into my brain the next time.
I think people are subconsciously living their lives or tailoring their experiences for Instagram. I think I see a lot of people decorating their homes for Instagram, or going on a holiday that's Instagram worthy. You know, they might think, oh, I won't go to Spain, I'll go to Greece because Santorini has those white buildings, which would be a great backdrop. And I just think that that is a level of, I guess, obsession or for validation that's crazy to me. Like, you would actually make your home something that looks good on Instagram, where, let's face it, no one really cares. Like, you know, people might like it or whatever, that's not real validation, that's just pretend. As long as you either know that it's false validation, or you post the behind the scenes of what your house actually looks like on your stories or something, I think that's good, because it kind of shows, especially young people, like, I couldn't imagine having Instagram when I was 12 or 13. Like, I think it would make you think that everyone's perfect and would make you really look at yourself and probably not like yourself. It's another thing that, like, people see the finished product on Instagram, but they don't see the work and the, like you say, years of experience that have gone into that. And I think there's this kind of culture of a quick fix, and like, I think people are more likely to kind of give up as well, because they're like, well, why isn't that happening for me? I've done that for 6 months. And I think there's so much to be said for hard graft and working, for years, kind of, I guess, behind the scenes, and just putting the work in.
Between deciding to change career
Yeah.
and tattooing your first client. I think your first client was you, so we're going to
Me.
exclude you unless your first tattoo to yourself was scarier. So which of these two things was scariest?
I think I thought it would be my first tattoo, because I didn't, weirdly, when I left the office job, I didn't really have much apprehension. I sort of thought, like, it's going to take me, 3 months to get a tattoo apprenticeship. I'll be fine. And I think it was a bit of a life shock, like, that I was like, oh my God, it's been, quite a few months now. I've been working really hard and it's not happened yet. And I think, like, so I think in reality, it was definitely career change. I remember I asked my colleague, I was like, when did you do your first tattoo? And she was like, oh, like 2 weeks into the apprenticeship. And I was a month into it at this point, and I was like, I'm falling behind. I was like, can I do one today? And she was like, yeah, like, what do you want to get? And I was like, I didn't know. I was like, so I was like, I'll just do a little lemon slice. So I like lemons. I'm never gonna not like them. Hopefully not. And I was like, I'll just do a little slice of lemon on my ankle. Like, literally had 10 minutes to prepare because I knew that she had like clients coming in or whatever. So we did it, and it was I kind of didn't have time to be scared, if that makes sense. So yeah, and I think my second one, apart from that one, or my first one apart from that one, was on a friend. So I felt like, they'd forgive me if I messed it up. So strangely, yeah, I think definitely career change. That was in the end quite frightening because I didn't know what I was doing. I think going into tattooing, I thought tattooing would be quite similar to drawing. And obviously you have to draw to be able to tattoo, because you've got to design for clients, make amendments, and be quite confident doing it. But I think tattooing is definitely a craft, and it's so separate from drawing. Like, it's strange. Like, I didn't expect it to be that different. It's so difficult. Like, there's so much you have to learn, and half of it's about the setup and like the way the needles work, the machine, the actual whole culture of it, the tradition, the meaning behind all this stuff. It's like, it's a whole different world from art that I think people think overlaps a lot, but it surprisingly doesn't. It's kind of like a whole different thing.
Does it like affect your like creative process if it's a drawing or if it's like designing a tattoo? Is it a very different way that you're going to approach it?
Definitely. It's with tattooing, there's because I think especially with Instagram, I'm just going off on one on Instagram, bloody Instagram. With Instagram, there's a lot of tattoos that look great on Instagram, but they're not kind of real. They're not going to last longer than a month. Like, when people get tattooed here, it fades super quick, and people always come into the shop and they're like, oh, I want a word here, and we have to say, we've got a duty of care to actually warn you that this isn't going to stay. This ink's going to come out after 2 weeks. And they're like showing us photos, being like, but look, I want it like this. And we're like, that's for Instagram. That's purely for Instagram. And like, so when you design tattoos, lots of the you kind of have to go with dark outlines and stuff, like, unless it's realism, and there's different styles. But for traditional, neo traditional, black work, obviously it's kind of dark lines so that they actually stay in the skin forever. And when you're 70, it's not going to be faded and half there. It's kind of, you have to kind of draw it with less detail as well, because if you cram too much detail in, the lines will just blur together over time. So again, so many people come in and they're like, I want something this detailed, and we're like, we can't do that. And they're like, but I've seen it, like, that person has it, I want it. And it's kind of trying to work with the client to explain those things, because yeah, basically, like, traditional artists always say, like, they preach bold will hold. So like bold lines will stay with you forever and it will look great when you're 70 or, you know, 20 years down the line. Whereas a lot of these kind of softer pieces that are maybe, you know, quite intricate and delicate might not, you know, 10 years down the line, it might not even look like the same tattoo. So there is that balancing that responsibility with the designing and working with the client to make sure it's what they want. So it's definitely different to what you'd draw for sure. People kind of pick their artists like and don't do the research. They'll kind of compare on price and things like that. But it's so, I can't stress it enough, so important to look at an artist's work and make sure you're happy with it, basically. Like that's why I always stress that I'm an apprentice. I'm not kind of, don't look at my art, look at my tattoos, because like it's not going to be perfect. I haven't got 20 years of experience under my belt, and you kind of have to know that it's going to look how the design looks. I'm not going to suddenly like slip and like draw a big line off of it, but it might not be perfect, and I'm still like such early on in my career that that's why it's cheaper as well.
That's so exciting though, like the idea of, you know, you're starting out like this and then you're kind of going, well, yeah, I'm starting out like this now, and also like you're super young, so like you've got like the whole career and a whole like just style development and everything to look forward to. It's going to be so exciting. What tips would you give to anyone who wants to get like a first tattoo? Obviously you said like research the artist and like know what their, you know, tattoos and their style looks like. Do you have any other tips for anyone like me who has never had a tattoo before?
Yes, I think definitely know what you want to get. Like be really, really sure on what style you want to get. So, and make sure the artist you want to get it from matches up with that. And when you contact the studio, it's probably best to go in. It's kind of always best to go in, because it's like online shopping for clothes. Like you'd barely order shoes online because you're worried it won't fit. Why would you kind of book in a tattoo without chatting through it with the artist? Unless it's something super small, like they probably don't need that much briefing or preparation for it. But just know where you want to get it, the size you want it, and don't think like small, medium or large. Think like 10 centimeters by 15 or something. And just work with the artist, and they'll be able to give you all the advice you need, and you can book in on the day and book into their calendar, and just kind of go for it as well. Like I think so many people kind of overthink it or worry about it, but as long as it's kind of not on your forehead or, you know, somewhere super visible as your first one, then just be confident in the design that you want and trust the artist. That's always a big one, you know, and make sure you're happy with it.
Did you have one specific moment where you're like, yes, I have made it? Or like not made it in the sense of like I've achieved all my hopes and dreams and goals in life, because obviously that's a bit early.
Yeah.
Just like a moment when you've been like, I've achieved this and this is amazing. Or like this was a goal that I had for ages and I'm so proud that I've got it.
100% getting my apprenticeship. I literally, like in the middle of the street, just like, I think I like jumped or like was just like so overwhelmed and excited, and like because it's such a prestigious studio and like it's got years of history and amazing artists, I was like, oh my god, like this is actually happening, and no one can take that away from you as well. And then there's all been like the little wins, and everything's a little win. Like even if someone buys a print or a commission or a tattoo, like it never gets old for me. I'm just like, when someone books in, I'm just so like excited and so happy, and I hope that doesn't go away, because it is just like the little wins all sort of add up, and really exciting.
That's so good, and such a good way as well of like keeping, like staying motivated through it all, because you're like, you've got those little wins and those little things throughout the whole thing. You don't have like one major goal that you're looking at going, oh well, in 30 years I might get there, but like I won't know until then. So that's so good. It's such a good way of staying motivated. Well, I'm so excited to see the next prints and the next drawings. I've already got 2 prints, but I'm planning on getting a collection.
I
So
mean, yeah, I'm not going to discourage you. No, thank you so much for having me. Like, I'm really excited to see, like, I've been like reading through some of the interviews and stuff, and like, I think it's going to really help people, and you know, hopefully, at least one person will have got something from this chat.
I think it'd be really helpful to have some sort of like transparency as to, what that process is like, especially, switching from one kind of career to the other. And
Yeah,
just,
definitely.
yeah, it's really interesting to see. All right. Well, thank you so much for, chatting and sharing all of that amazing experience.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really, really enjoyed it.